Hello, in this video I will show you my process for a portrait of a woman in the style of the Dutch old masters of the 17th century. I certainly don't want to put myself on the same level as Rembrandt and his colleagues, but I love the painting of the Netherlands in the 17th century and use today's possibilities to learn something from them. I was inspired to create this portrait by a painting I saw at the museum in Frankfurt. It's by the Dutch painter Jan Cornelis Versprong from around the year 1642. What you get in this video? I first create a brown underpainting and then work through the various stages of glazes up to the semi-transparent layers and the details, to finally achieve a classical style portrait. Most small portraits were painted on wooden panels in the Netherlands in the 17th century. The drawing is very important to me with this working method, as I barely work with opaque layers. I primed the panel with a light ground according to the Dutch tradition at that time. And I used the tools available to me to get the proportions correctly on the panel. Here a nautical divider compass. After all, the Dutch were seafaring people. I apply the underpainting with burnt umber and white. This was also a common method among Dutch artists. I take very little paint onto the mongoose hair brushes, so it's almost like a dry brush technique and has something drawing-like about it. Starting with the shadows and then work my way towards the light areas. With my grisaille underpaintings I often paint more finely than here, but I know that I will be using semi-opaque layers later. I spared the model from wearing a pretty but rather uncomfortable milestone collar from the 17th century. A hoodie looks more authentic today. The first layer of the background is a transparent Van Dyck brown, which I lighten with some white on the light side. The second layer of the background consists of raw umber and lamp black, as well as green umber, red and yellow ochre on the light side. I also work the mixture of burnt umber and lamp black into the hair area, as I want the person to merge somewhat with the background. After the underpainting has dried for a few days, it's time for the glazes. The glaze of the hoodie is transparent and consists of green earth with just a tiny bit of ultramarine blue. I apply a highlight with white into the wet glaze. Throughout this painting I use flake white replacement by Schminke. Applying the first glaze of the flesh tones with a warm semi-transparent mixture. This consists of almost transparent yellow ochre deep by Michael Harding, as well as half-burnt ochre, Scarlet Lake as a vermillion substitute, and some transparent ivory black for toning down. Then I apply a white highlight into the red glaze with a flake white replacement. In doing so, I make sure to already model the flesh tones and further develop the tonal values. I use a technique here where I also work a delicate well of white into the shadows area. I will use this technique several times in this painting. The shadow areas gain more liveliness with this way. In technical examinations of old paintings, lead white pigments have been found in the glazes of the shadows, which suggests such a technique. among others in Rembrandt, Rubens and Van Dyck. I will demonstrate this again later. Here you can see how thinly I pick up the white with a brush and how it also mixes somewhat with the glaze color. I apply a first color layer to the eyes to also equalize the tonal values here somewhat. When you look at the eyes in old Dutch portrait paintings, you notice that very many eyes were painted dark and also somewhat too large. I noticed this with Rembrandt and others. I will also use this trick in this painting. So, the first color layer of the flesh tones has been applied and is now drying for about 2 days. Now follows a layer in which I deepen the shadows. For this I use a mixture of raw umber, ivory black and a little Scarlet Lake. And again, I add white highlights into the red shadow glaze. Now I deepen the dark areas in the hair with a mixture of ivory black, raw umber and a little ultramarine blue. I use the same mixture to deepen the shadows on the hoodie. This is what it looks like now. Now follows the second and final complete glaze over the flesh tones. This time the mixture is somewhat more reddish and consists of yellow ochre half burnt, red ochre, Scarlet Lake and again some ivory black. I also apply this glaze over the eyes and the mouth to create a greater color harmony. The white highlighting into the red glaze now turns the paint back into a skin tone. Again, a delicate well of white, here with some ultramarine blue over the shadows. With this layer, the modeling of the tonal values is even more important than with the first glaze layer. Here you can really see some lead white pigments into the shadow areas. Now I also deepen some areas again. The modeling of the tonal values becomes finer. Now I work in some Alizarin Crimson as a substitute for Meadow Lake, mixed with a skin glaze mixture to create nuances in the skin tone. I try to bring some life to the eye area to have a better overall impression of the painting. After the last color layer has dried for 2 days, I begin with the final partial color layers, which are partly semi-opaque. This light mixture consists of white and a little of the half-burnt ochre. I tone down the alizarin red somewhat. And my shadow mixture also comes into use again. I only suggest individual hairs and strands. Now the details on the eyes. And further highlights with a toned white mixture. The Dutch masters used these light reflections extensively to bring more liveness to the faces. The finished portrait. Thank you for watching.